Haunted hayrides are a Halloween tradition. The hay, the costumes, the cold October air. They're supposed to be safe, cheap scares. A guy in a mask jumps out, you scream, everyone laughs, and then it's over. But not every hayride goes as planned. Tonight, you'll hear 3 encounters from people who got more than a staged fright. These are raw, disturbing moments that turned a night of fun into something no one could explain. Hello, and welcome to No Sleep Tonight. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps this channel grow and keeps these true horror stories coming. Alright, let's dive into 3 unsettling hayride stories you'll never forget. The Phantom Rider. It was Halloween night, the kind where your fingers go numb holding a cup of cider, and the smell of bonfires carries through the air. My friends and I decided to cap the night with the haunted hayride they ran every year at the edge of town. The setup was simple. The wagon was really just a flatbed trailer hitched to a tractor. The floor covered in loose straw, big square hay bales lining the sides for people to sit on. They crammed as many people on as possible. Kids in masks, teenagers laughing too loud, parents pretending not to be cold. You sat shoulder to shoulder, your boots sinking into the straw. When the tractor lurched forward, the chatter died down. The lights of the fairground faded behind us as we rattled down a dirt trail into the woods. Actors jumped out here and there, a plastic chainsaw, a guy in a werewolf mask. Everyone screamed, then laughed. That's how it always went. But about halfway through, something shifted. I felt the straw move under me, like someone had stepped onto the wagon late. It was subtle, just a crunch behind me, the weight of the trailer tilting slightly. I turned my head. At the very back of the wagon, sitting on the edge of a hay bale, was a man I hadn't seen before. He wasn't in costume, no mask, no makeup, no fake blood, just dark clothes, worn and plain. His head bowed slightly. His face was pale, the kind of pale that almost glowed under the lantern light. What unsettled me most was that nobody else seemed to notice. Not the kids right next to him, not the parents across the way. They carried on talking, laughing, sipping cider like he wasn't there at all. I nudged my friend and whispered, "Do you see that guy?" She followed my eyes and frowned. "What guy?" she said. She was looking directly at him, but it was like her eyes slid right past, seeing nothing. I turned back quickly. His head was up now, and he was staring at me. His eyes locked on mine, not blinking. I snapped my head forward, my heart pounding in my throat. I told myself not to look again. I stared at the back of the tractor, at the glow of its taillights, at anything else. But after a few minutes, I couldn't resist. I looked back. He was closer. No one had moved, nobody shifted, but now he was 2 rows up, perched on another hay bale, his face still locked on mine. My mouth went dry. I nudged my friend again, harder this time, but she just gave me a confused look and shook her head. The wagon bumped hard over a rut. Slowly, I turned. He was sitting next to me. His shoulder brushed mine. His face was inches from mine. His skin was pale, waxy, his lips cracked. His eyes were wide, so close I could see the veins spidering through them. I wanted to scream, to shove him off, to leap from the wagon if I had to. But when I looked around, nobody else reacted. Everyone carried on as if nothing was happening. Kids giggling, parents pointing at the fake props along the trail. Nobody saw him. I turned back. The wagon jolted to a stop. We were back at the fairground. The tractor driver yelled for everyone to climb down. People stood, brushing straw from their clothes, grabbing their kids' hands, laughing about how silly it all was. I glanced at the space next to me. Empty. I searched the crowd as we walked back under the orange Halloween lights. Parents, kids, teenagers, but no man in dark clothes. Not anywhere. That night, when I got home, I shut every curtain and locked every door. But even then, I couldn't shake the feeling. Every time I turned my head, every time I walked past a window, I expected to see him sitting there in the dark, still watching me. Whispers in the corn. It was Halloween night, the kind where the cold cuts through your jacket, but everyone's too excited to care. I went with a group of friends to a haunted hayride set up outside of town. Unlike the ones that went into the woods, this one cut straight through a cornfield. The wagon was really just a flatbed trailer pulled by an old tractor. They'd spread straw across the floor, with square bales along the sides for us to sit on. By the time we climbed on, it was packed. Families, kids still in costume, teenagers like us trying to act tougher than we felt. The trail led directly into the corn. The stalks were tall, higher than the wagon, brushing against us as we rolled past. Jack-o'-lanterns had been placed here and there, their light faint and uneven, barely cutting into the dark. At first, it was fun. Actors jumped out from the rows, waving plastic weapons, shouting. Everyone screamed, then laughed, exactly like you'd expect. But about halfway in, the energy shifted. That's when I heard it. At first, it blended with the wind, a soft hiss moving through the stalks. But then I noticed it had rhythm. It wasn't random. It was voices, whispers. I leaned forward, straining to hear, and realized they were everywhere. Dozens of them circling the wagon, rising and falling, but never clear enough to understand. My stomach tightened. I thought maybe the ride had hidden speakers in the corn, some kind of trick. But the sound wasn't even on both sides. It moved, slipped from left to right, closer, then farther away. A girl a few rows ahead clutched her boyfriend's arm and whispered, "Do you hear that?" He nodded, his face pale. That's when I realized the whole wagon had gone silent. Kids stopped laughing. Parents froze mid-sentence. Everyone was listening. Then it cut through, sharp, distinct. Laughter, not loud, not playful, just a faint chuckle, low and close, like someone leaning against the side of the wagon. The driver slowed the tractor, the engine growling. No one moved. The only sound was that laughter, drifting just above the straw floor, like it was right there with us. And then the cold hit, not October chill. Worse, a sudden drop in temperature that made the air feel heavy. My breath came out in white clouds. Goosebumps spread down my arms. Around me, people shifted uncomfortably, rubbing their hands together. You could feel it, something pressing in on all of us. And then, just as suddenly, silence. The whispers, the laughter, gone. No wind in the corn, no sound at all. Just the creak of the wagon and the slow crunch of dirt under the tractor wheels. The driver revved the engine again, but the wagon stayed quiet. Nobody spoke the rest of the ride, not until we came out of the field and saw the lights of the fairground ahead. When we finally climbed off, people scattered fast, like they couldn't wait to get away from each other. My friends tried to laugh it off, but no one really could. We all heard it, and none of us wanted to admit that it hadn't sounded like a trick. The apparition in the woods. It was Halloween night, and I went with a few friends to a hayride we'd never tried before. They said it was the scariest in the area because it went deep into the woods, far past the lights of the fairground. The wagon was just a flatbed trailer with straw on the floor and hay bales along the sides for seats. The crowd piled on. Parents with kids still in costume, couples holding hands, groups of teenagers acting tough. The driver revved the old tractor, and we rattled into the trees. At first, it was the usual stuff. A few props nailed to trees. Some guy in a cheap mask jumped out with a fake chainsaw. People screamed, then laughed, exactly like they were supposed to. But the farther we went, the darker it got. The lanterns strung along the trail stopped appearing. The air turned colder, and after a while, no more actors showed up. Just the sound of the tractor, the creak of the wagon, and the wheels crunching over dirt. People started whispering, wondering if something was wrong. I noticed the driver leaning forward on his seat, tense, like he was pushing the tractor harder than he should have to. We were crawling along slower and slower until the wagon shuddered to a stop. That's when I smelled it. Rot. It wasn't faint. It wasn't something you could ignore. It was sharp, sour, overwhelming, like roadkill left in the sun. People covered their noses and mouths. A kid coughed until his mother pulled his hoodie up over his face. Someone called out, "Hey, what's going on?" But the driver didn't answer, and then the headlights caught them. Faces. At first, I thought they were masks nailed to the trees, but they weren't. Dozens of pale faces pressed between the trunks, just far enough back that the light didn't fully reach them. Their eyes were dark pits, but I could feel them staring at us. They didn't move. They didn't blink. They just stood there, a silent wall of faces in the dark. A man on the wagon muttered, "Actors. They've got to be actors." But his voice cracked halfway through. No one laughed. No one said anything back, because deep down, we all knew these weren't actors. The tractor engine sputtered and died. The headlights dimmed. The wagon creaked as everyone shifted, trying to get away from the edge, pressing in toward the center. Parents clutched their kids. Teenagers grabbed onto each other. The air was freezing now, heavy and wrong, and that smell, that sour, choking rot, was everywhere. For what felt like forever, we just sat there, surrounded by those faces. The silence was unbearable. I could hear the wagon wood groaning under the weight of everyone leaning inward. I could hear a woman sobbing quietly into her scarf. And then someone screamed. It wasn't an actor's scream. It was real, high and sharp, cutting straight through the night. The driver turned the key over and over, the engine coughing, refusing to start. The headlights flickered once, twice, and in that stutter of light, the faces were gone, just trees. The engine finally roared back to life, and the driver slammed the tractor into gear. He didn't slow down again. The wagon bounced hard over ruts and rocks as he pulled us back toward the fairground, faster than he should have been driving, the crowd clutching the hay bales to keep from being thrown. Nobody said a word the entire way back. Not one. When we finally rolled into the glow of the fairground lights, people scrambled off without looking at each other. Parents dragged their kids toward the parking lot. Couples hurried away. My friends and I just stood there for a moment, silent, trying to make sense of what we'd seen. I asked the driver, "What was that out there?" He didn't look at me, didn't even stop walking. He just muttered, "Don't ask," and kept going. That was the last hayride I ever went on, and to this day, when I'm in the woods at night, I half expect to look up and see those faces waiting in the dark. Halloween hayrides are supposed to be safe scares, masks, costumes, stage tricks. But these stories prove that sometimes, on October 31st, the ride gives you more than you paid for. Have you ever had something happen on a hayride you couldn't explain? Share it in the comments. And if you want more Halloween horrors, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching No Sleep Tonight. I'll see you in the next video. And until then, sleep well.